Hello and welcome to the Thursday episode of The Hash, where we talk you through all that is going on in the world of cryptocurrency and more. I am Zack Seward. We are joined by Ben Powers, Jen Sanasie, Will Foxley, and the great Naomi Brockwell. She has our first story of the day. Naomi, take it from here.
Everyone hear that? I'm the great Naomi Brockwell. So I'm going to start this off. You feel a little ripped off, yeah. Well, it's all right. By the end of this show, you'll be great too, Jen. We'll make sure that Zack announces it at the end. All right, we're going to start off by talking about what's going on in China. So the crackdown on the tech industry continues. On Wednesday, the central government just announced a 5-year plan that calls for tougher regulation across industries. It doesn't just apply to crypto, it applies to a bunch of other industries. It includes education, it includes insurance. And the result of this is that share prices for Chinese tech companies like Tencent and Alibaba, which are giant behemoths over there, they've been tumbling. You know, SoftBank is talking about holding back on investing in the country. The repercussions of all of this crackdown is that people don't want to do business there anymore. And it's kind of startling that they're really pushing this agenda, you know, this control narrative about, you know, rating and all of these tech companies, and the tech companies are saying like, well, that's not really the place for us to do business then. So it's interesting what's going on there. I'm going to throw this to the group. Zack, let's start off with you. What's your take on everything that's going on in China at the moment and you know, the future of the crypto industry in particular?
I think it's really just kind of, again, interesting to get that bigger context, right? So we sort of have this, not, I would say myopic, but, you know, definitely like targeted view toward the crypto industry, but to see the China crackdown for the bigger context that it sits in is really important here. And I think that's really quite notable. So that's really my only big takeaway. You know, it's something that I think we're going to see this story unfold for a while here, obviously, as is alluded to in this report. And, you know, whether that ultimately hamstrings the development of a really exciting industry or multiple really exciting industries within the tech sector more broadly, I think it's going to be pretty interesting for how it shakes out in the global scene. But yeah, I'm going to toss this to Will. I'm curious for his take. I mean, is there a particular mining angle that you feel is most notable here?
Yeah, I think there's a few different angles to look at this story. And to me, the thing that caught me off guard was like that 5-year plan notice. And like that's a phrase that's been in communist language since like the days of Lenin and Stalin. And now we're seeing it interact with the cryptocurrency landscape, which is just like weird to see those two very, very separate worlds collide here with this Chinese regulation. And I think like, yes, like Bitcoin mining has an angle here. Obviously, China cracked down on Bitcoin mining throughout this year. That pressure didn't alleviate. Some people thought that it might change after the CCP's, I think, 100th year anniversary or 50th year anniversary. Forget what it was exactly. On July 1, that didn't leave, that didn't change. In fact, more provinces cracked down on Bitcoin mining even after that date. And it doesn't seem that it's really specific to any one industry outside of just general tech. Like tech has just been cracked down on. We noted here on the show a few times that Didi, which is like a ride-hailing service similar to Uber in China, has faced tremendous amounts of pressure for its attempts to go public in China, or rather on U.S. markets, and Chinese regulators have not been happy with them. And we also saw the same thing with private education markets. In China, education's public, but it's not as good. So they have private education markets, and those companies were kind of cracked down on by the state as well. So I think we're just kind of seeing continued narrative, which is, it's very sad to see, especially when we're seeing so much uplift from the cryptocurrency markets right now, where there's been a lot of adoption and a lot of enthusiasm around Bitcoin becoming money and Ethereum becoming a public platform for using any sort of decentralized financial application. It's just striking to see these two differences. And we also should just note, like, it's not just Bitcoin mining, also exchanges were kind of slapped down this year as well. Ben, I want to throw this story down to you. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think what was interesting to me is this stands in contrast to a letter sent by Congressman Darren Soto, one of the co-chairs of the blockchain caucus here in the U.S., where he explicitly, in relation to the pay-fors being carved out around crypto in the larger infrastructure bill that we've talked about before, he explicitly mentioned China getting an edge on this technology, were that bill to pass in full with the language as it currently stands, and pushing U.S. companies and innovative tech offshore, not inside the U.S. So I wonder if that's still kind of going to be a target that can be held up to be knocked down from the U.S. perspective if China continues this crackdown, because I don't think this is going to lead to more innovation. I think the 5-year plan lays out very clearly that there's going to continue to be a lot of governmental scrutiny, regulation, and pushback amongst these companies growing sort of exponentially or out of the control of the government themselves. So I'm curious, because if that bill passes, for example, and sort of innovation in crypto falls a little by the wayside in the U.S. as a result, and China simultaneously cracking it down, I'm curious about where that tech is going to go to develop further, because I don't think it's going away, but it won't be here or there necessarily.
Yeah, just off the back of that, Ben, Congressman Emmer spoke last month in the House, and he warned them about CBDCs, and he looked at China. We talk about what's going on in China as like this thing that's happening so far away, and sure, it affects us. But he said, if the U.S. starts looking at CBDCs as this surveillance tool and pushing crypto out just like it's happening in China, we could be in a lot of trouble. And I think that this is kind of foreshadowing as to what could happen in the United States if we're not careful about what happens with the United States digital currency.
Yeah, I completely agree there. But Ben, I'll throw to you for our next story. Let's move offshore to a different place and see what's going on in Puerto Rico right now.
Yeah, absolutely. While still keeping it in the United States, of course. So Dan Kuhn, one of the featured writers here at CoinDesk, had a really great piece, I thought, that was looking and took a deep dive into kind of the state of play in Puerto Rico around crypto. This is not a new narrative per se, right? Like we've sort of seen Puerto Rico, because of a lack of capital gains tax, which greatly impacts crypto, using individuals, really be an attractive place for sort of the nouveau riche of crypto in a lot of different ways, beginning not least of which in 2017 around the previous bull run, but also, Brock Pierce, a prominent crypto personality and, uber wealthy individual, sort of talking about Puertotopia as, putting together a sort of enclave of crypto-focused endeavors on the island. This piece was interesting because I thought it showed both the highs and the promise and the lows of the reality of when the sort of, ambitions of crypto meet the, as we affectionately call, like the meat space of the real world. But Will, I see you nodding. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this piece and what it kind of shows us about the larger ecosystem of crypto when it comes to localities that have been espoused as being incredibly beneficial for individuals who tend to traffic in cryptocurrency.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'd say go read this piece. I think Dan is one of the better writers in the space out there. He really has like a knack for kind of capturing the magic around a moment. So really awesome piece from him. I think Puerto Rico, obviously, just like the tax haven status is really interesting. And then there's also some interesting dynamics when you kind of think about like what Puerto Rico is in the US. Like it's from the US's really imperialistic age, like at the turn of the century, and they capture that island, and it's the US's now, but they don't have states' rights, and now they're kind of in this weird zone where they are a tax haven for the ultra rich, but at the same time, the people on the island often don't get the benefits of that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But as we saw like last year or 2 years ago with I think Hurricane Maria, I think was that hurricane that came through, just kind of devastated the island, and Dan kind of worked through that in the piece as well, kind of noting how crypto came there after the last bull cycle and it helped to a degree, but not enough. Like there's still not a lot of electricity on the island, not a lot of running water in some places. And then you have Bitcoin whales coming in, just sitting on the beach, enjoying that they don't have to pay capital gains taxes. So there's a lot of intersection here in this piece. And I guess just in terms of predictions, I think that it makes sense for something like Puerto Rico to keep growing and being popular among like the crypto wealthy, just as we've seen like with other tax havens around the Caribbean or in other countries like Portugal. It just makes sense for that to happen, but it does really capture like the human element of this story, that money goes to some people's pockets, but it doesn't go into everybody's pockets. Naomi, I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you have like any friends who have moved there? I feel like there's got to be someone who's kind of like made the transition down there just based on like their crypto living.
Yeah, I'd say like a large double-digit percentage of my friends live in Puerto Rico. I'll push back on that idea of like, well, these are people who are just laying on the beach and enjoying this tax-free life. Like, from what I've seen there, and I've been down there, it's really exciting what's happening there, and all of the businesses that are just flourishing down there. People just bringing new jobs to the area as well. I mean, they're really developing lots of areas, and it's not just in the crypto space. It's like hospitals and airports and all kinds of things. This is early days. So I definitely don't think we've seen the full potential of people moving there. These are people who want a good place to live. They don't want to be running generators. A lot of my friends are still using generators there because the power grid is not good. But there are a lot of people working on that. It's just a very bureaucratic and tough process to get through. But a lot of smart minds who are really trying to make things better, even just for themselves, but there are positive externalities of that do flow out to everyone else if they can fix the power grid for themselves. Everyone gets to benefit from that. I want to talk about this idea of this loophole, because I know that this is a term that's thrown around a lot about Puerto Rico, where they say, well, this is a tax loophole and people are taking advantage of it. I would say that it's the tax system working exactly as designed. Puerto Rico very intentionally set up this situation where they do not have capital gains. They have other taxes. So there's corporate taxes and there's property taxes and sales taxes as well, but there's no capital gains. And they did that specifically because they really wanted to encourage businesses to move there. And now businesses are moving there because the situation in America on the mainland is just, it's crazy in a lot of ways for businesses. And especially with the devastation of the last couple of years, we've seen businesses really trying to hang on, and they're looking for ways where they can, continue to exist as companies. And so taking advantage of all of the wonderful regulation that Puerto Rico has set out has actually, they've succeeded in their mission. If they're trying to get lots of businesses moving there, they've got a ton, and the momentum is huge. If you talk to people in the crypto industry, I not only know a lot of people who live there. I'm talking to people who are considering moving there because they're saying, it's a great place to raise a family. It's not just about the business side of things. It's just a really wonderful place. So very excited to see what the future of that is, and really hope that it lifts everyone in the region, which I'm predicting that it will. But let's go to a break here. What's coming up after the break?
Yes, let's do that. We are going to take a break, and then it's another day, so there's another DeFi hack. So we're going to talk about that DeFi hack. This is a small one, 7.3 million, no biggie. We're going to talk about that after the break. It's not 600 million. I don't care anymore. All right, we're going to take a break, grab a drink, and we'll talk to you soon. Stick with us. It's The Hash.
CoinDesk indexes, the market standard for crypto assets since 2014. The CoinDesk DeFi Index is our latest product and provides insight and exposure into decentralized finance. Our indexes are key for investors looking to access and understand crypto markets.
The CoinDesk DeFi Index is the best tool for a diversified approach to this compelling new category of digital assets.
The CoinDesk DeFi Index, measuring the investable DeFi market.
Welcome back to The Hash. So we're going to talk about DAO Maker, which is not Maker DAO, even though they have similar words.
It's the worst.
And DAO Makers lost. They have the same words. You are correct. They lost $7 million Thursday after an exploit worked through. This is a very confusing exploit as far as the exploits I've seen, but basically they lost a lot of money and a lot of people are unhappy. And it just kind of adds this whole narrative of more DeFi losses. And then there's this little asterisk on it where we have some DeFi projects that are being exploited. The reason they're being exploited is not only because they have bad code, but they're trying to siphon away users from legitimate projects. So, of course, DAO Maker, similar to Maker DAO. And then there was Compounder Finance, which is similar to Compound Finance. And then there was, yesterday we talked about Poly Network, which is similar to the Polygon Network. So we have a lot of people just kind of siphoning away users, even just by simple Google searches where they just type in the wrong thing. They deposit money into a project they think that is good. And then lo and behold, you're out of money. So according to a Twitter thread, the DAO Maker team said 5,500 users were affected, with the average person losing about $1,000, which is a decent amount of money. And it's kind of a rough way to get an intro to the space. I haven't seen a lot of numbers when these hacks happen in terms of users or addresses, because of course you can spoof how many addresses are being used, and people aren't very honest about how many actual users they have all the time, just to make the project seem like it's doing better. But it's interesting to see this 5,500 number attached to it, and then to see the average loss attached to it. And I think that's a big argument that a lot of Bitcoiners or people who are DeFi skeptics make, is when you have these products test on the go, you end up losing people because you burn them so quickly when hacks inevitably happen. Like all code has bugs in it. So it makes sense that it's going to happen. But if you add code with money, then you're going to have some bummed users. Zach, I want to get your thoughts on this. Another day, another DeFi exploit, as you said. But interesting to see the return of like this, the mimic hacks, I guess, with the Maker DAO and the DAO Maker.
Yeah, it does really add to the narrative. And I mean, I think, yeah, the broader point here is, I think a lot of projects sort of like to abstract the human element away from the building and the launching of these things and even of the using of these things. And I think when it comes down to it, these are 5,500 really bummed people who lost $1,000 and aren't sure if they're going to be compensated in full. So it is sort of... a turnoff. You hear about these cool things. You say, hey, I want to be early. I want to support this thing early. Again, the story of crypto is that sort of early supporters tend to reap outsized gains. And they jump in early and they get wrecked. And that's sort of like the downside of composability, right? Composability, this idea of these DeFi Lego building blocks that you can sort of like stack on top of each other and innovate really quickly and build products really quickly. But the downside of that is that sometimes the bugs can be compounded in that process as well. And so one hack becomes another hack, and you have more and more and more people who are bummed and turned off by what's otherwise an exciting and interesting space to play in. So I think that's sort of just the takeaway for me as we see more of these. Again, this isn't a big giant one like the $600 million one we saw just the other day, but it's still people who are left with a bad taste in their mouth after experimenting with decentralized finance. Jen, I saw your hand first, and then Naomi. So Jen, the great Jen Sanasie, please take it away.
Yes.
The great Jen.
I just have a question for you, Will. I mean, it's 5,500 people, but that's 5,500 people who were burned. And they also went on to tell all of their friends and family about how they were burned in this and to maybe not take part in DeFi. Is there a cautious way for people to dip their toes into DeFi and get used to how it works without having to lose $1,000?
Yeah, for sure.
If you're going to do it right, you got to ape in, is the way I say it. But I think that there are projects out there, legitimate projects that even just use the back end of DeFi to be able to get like interest rate rewards. I think Coinbase has a product like that, and there's a really awesome project out there. The name escapes you right now that does that very thing where you just have their wallet and then you deposit money in it and it'll earn interest through the back end being DeFi, and then the front end is just a very simple interaction. So, and I think this gets back to Zach's point. The early people have the most reward, but they also have the most risk, and that's where you're going to get burned. But Naomi, you want to hear your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, go to the brands that have been around for a long time who have a good reputation in the industry, like Shapeshift, just announced that they're completely decentralizing. That's exactly what they're doing, what Will described, this kind of forward-facing aggregation of a bunch of different DeFi things on the back end. So very exciting to see more things like that pop up. But I was going to say, I just want to push back a little bit on the narrative that because of the name similarity, some of these are just rip-offs of other things. Obviously, there are some rug pulls and deliberately deceptive practices out there with people deliberately putting their name. But keep in mind, 4 years ago, every single company had the word bit in their name. They weren't trying to rip off things. They just literally were trying to find something that has to do with like Bitcoin or crypto industry. So I don't think that something like DAO Maker, I mean, I don't want to make judgments about them just trying to rip off. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to fire some shots and lose some friends with this one. But all right, guys, if you're making a project, do not just make a word cloud of the biggest DeFi projects out there, throw in a freaking Mad Lib and try and reverse words. Actually do something original.
Why,
because this is not the way to do it. And I think that factors into the really sleazy aspect of just trying to traffic on the backs of actual successful projects. And then you get your shit hacked. So sorry, do better, be more original.
Now push back, Ben, because
cool
a lot
names.
of they're coming up with the names at the same time, and some just do better than others. And then you think, well, the lesser one's clearly a ripoff. I just think that this is in the ether. This is like the zeitgeist at the moment. People are taking these names, and I don't think it's necessarily malicious. I wouldn't attribute that sort of motivation. Maybe bad marketing, I might attribute it to. But Jen, let's change the topic. What have we got next?
All right. So Samsung plans on partnering with South Korea's CBDC pilot to test the functionality with its Galaxy smartphone. So they'll be focusing on whether or not it's possible to conduct payments via mobile phones with no internet availability. And so maybe I'm thinking about this in the wrong way. One of you tell me if I'm totally wrong in this, but I used to live in South Korea, and my observation when I lived there was that the Koreans are very proud to support the Korean brand Samsung. They drive Samsung cars, they have Samsung appliances, and now Samsung is going to be taking part in the CBDC pilot. And for me, this was just like a big privacy red flag. Like Samsung has already collected all of this data, and now they're going to get financial data through the CBDC project. And I am concerned. But Will, I saw your hand go up, so maybe tell me if I'm thinking about this in just a totally out there way.
Well, you lived in South Africa too, right?
I sure did.
Just get a world traveler on the show. I guess that's my only
I'm
comment.
really aging myself here.
Yeah. I don't know about like the privacy aspects. I think we've kind of gone round and round on that topic throughout the show. I think any CBDC has a lot of questions with it, especially when you're tying something like a public blockchain together with a cell phone carrier. Like you're just interacting like data, and like phones listen to you. Phones can see what you're typing a lot of times, and there's backdoors and a lot of these things that people don't know about. And then you're tying like financial properties involved with that. And the finance industry has very strong regulations for a reason. They get messed up a lot and people make a lot of mistakes with them, but they're there for a reason. And now we're seeing an intersection of those two things. So it's dangerous, but I think it's also what consumers want. Like I would want to be able to pay with my phone simply, like when I go to the store. I don't want to carry my wallet anymore. So, if consumers are asking for it, like that's what you get, is you're going to have a lot of questions associated with it. I do want to hear Naomi's thoughts on this particular subject though.
Well, I would love to dig into the reason why we have all these financial regulations. That reason is governments really want to control the movement of money. So I think that you're probably right, Jen, but I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary from anything we've seen with any other CBDC that's being proposed out there. I think, honestly, this is a play to kind of eliminate cash and be able to fully control the movement of money in a much more comprehensive way. I think that, integrating with Samsung, it makes sense. People want this stuff on their phones, but people also want to be able to have like a million different apps, which are giant privacy holes on their phones. They want to be able to have a microphone that's just connected seamlessly. They want to be able to have all these things. And like your Wi-Fi beacon, just like constantly pinging out every network that you've ever connected to, providing like a tracking fingerprint for you. So there are lots of things we do for convenience that are terrible for privacy. I think the best thing we can do is just educate people and just let them know why they might not want to have all their financial data tracked and stored in a database for all of time. It's interesting what's going on in South Korea, because while they're kind of moving forward with this CBDC pilot, we did previously, like maybe around like 2016, 2015, like we're looking at South Korea and saying, okay, this is going to be like a crypto hub of the world. And everyone was predicting it. They've got the fastest internet. They're very, very tech centric. And then they just clamped down and they drove so much crypto adoption out the window because they just really clamped down on the regulation around it all. So I was very surprised to see that, thinking that they would kind of be this bastion of tech innovation in the crypto space. But now they're moving ahead with the CBDC pilot. So it's very clear in what direction they want that innovation to be. They want it to be very government-centric, very controlled fashion, which I guess does make sense in a lot of ways. But just wish we could have seen their potential, because I think it would have been awesome. But Ben, I'll throw to you.
Yeah, I thought two parts of this piece really stood out to me. Jen, as you spoke about previously, one, like there's a hyper connectivity aspect in South Korea that's really important. Like the Wi-Fi internet's much better than it is, particularly in parts of the US, I would say. And there's also this sort of this tendency to be affectionate towards Samsung as a brand, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if we see more like governments try and partner with like large national companies that have a lot of like forward-facing capability. Like I'm kind of comparing this in my head to like if Apple did something similar with the US government. I think there would be a lot of people that would be inherently a little bit more trusting and open to that, just given their relationship with the brand itself. The secondary part of this that I thought was interesting is the testing, and the Samsung explicitly said this, the testing of like offline transactions and how that might work. I think that's a really interesting idea in the sense of just seeing how that functionality might go and how it might even be possible. And maybe I'm missing something here, because like you can't even do that with banking generally right now, right? Like our standard commercial banking apps are incapable of moving money around when you're offline or not connected to data in some way. And it kind of harkens back to, looking at the Puerto Rico story we were talking about earlier, traders that Dan talked to were saying like, what's not great for doing crypto and trading in Puerto Rico is like, rolling blackouts where you lose Wi-Fi for like hours on end potentially, or your internet and stuff like that. So this seems to be interesting to me on those two levels as indicative of like what areas CBDCs are being played in, and then also like how countries might get people to actually adopt them. So those are just 2 data points I'm taking away from this one.
All right, I'm taking the ball here, and we're going to the sports desk. It's sports desk time. An update on Lionel Messi, Paris Saint-Germain's latest superstar. I want to do this story by recreating a meme. All right, it's the meme where the guy is looking at the computer. He's really excited, and it says, Messi to be paid in crypto. And then the next picture is the guy looking at the computer, and he's like, kind of like dejected, and it says, Messi to be paid in PSG fan token. So that's my first point on this one.
Very well done.
This is not a story. Thank you, Will. Thank you. This is not a story about the latest superstar athlete to accept their paycheck in Bitcoin or Ether. This is a story about potentially an exciting arena of the crypto universe that are called fan tokens that are still very much in the potential category. So that's the story here. It's through a platform called Socios. They do these little tokens that are basically like loyalty points for your favorite team. And it's another area of experimentation in this never-ending sports crypto mashup that we talk about here often. I'm going to toss this to Will just for your initial thoughts. I think this captivated a lot of excitement in the press this morning, but largely because of that initial deception of some of the headlines out there. What's your initial take on Messi experimenting a bit further in cryptocurrency?
This is what adoption looks like. This is good. No, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about these token things. Like, the sports tokens, in a sense, make sense, and that you'd have like kind of a digital coupon for entering a game, or maybe for like tickets, or for like food at a venue, or maybe have the ability to go meet Messi or some other sports player. But overall, they definitely don't compete in the money category. And I think a lot of people kind of think about cryptocurrencies as money, and like there's not a big differentiation yet between tokens and Bitcoin in like the public's eye. And so that's why a lot of people, when they see these things, are like, oh, he's getting paid in this weird token. Why not just get paid Bitcoin or something else? Well, it's totally different utility. I don't understand why he agreed to be paid in it. Maybe it will pump, who knows? And then he'll dump on all his fans. So that's kind of cool. But overall, I think like there's very different utility here than like your Bitcoin or your other tokens that are trying to be money. But Naomi, I want to hear your thoughts on the sports desk. Let's hear it.
Sports desk, always got to chime in when it comes to sports, you know me. Well, I think this is sort of reminiscent of what we see in a lot of different industries, right? Because in the film industry, you have actors who get paid on the front end, right, certain amount in their contract, but then they get paid a percentage depending on how well the film does. And you get that, coming in over a period of time. And I think that this is just a way to apply that to other industries, like maybe the sporting sector, where you may be more invested in something if your income depends on the success of it. So maybe this is just his way of saying, like, I'm invested in this, I'm staking in this, and I'm pushing for its future. Whether or not he's actually going to go all the way with this and stick to it, or whether he's just going to dump at the end of the day, I don't know. That's an interesting point you raise, Will. But I do think that this is interesting. Like it's just interesting to see that back end model be applied to different industries now that we have tokens that can do that. I think that's kind of cool. We're probably going to see more of it. But Jen, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, so just clarify something for me. In the story, it said that the tokens would allow fans to make smaller decisions based on his career. Is that correct?
I think it's in relation to like minor decisions within the club itself. As opposed to Messi.
Okay.
It's not like a govern my life.
So
it's like the
club
overall
decisions.
club.
How funny would that be?
I was
Today.
what kind of decisions are they making? Okay,
We've literally
good.
seen that happen, though, so we got to clarify.
That
I
is
mean,
good to
I bet
know.
you could do some cool things, like what jersey to wear at this game, or like, you know,
Yeah.
like little things like that might be fun ways to stoke fan engagement. But yeah, I mean, we sort of are seeing this early. We sort of saw a little bit of this with this whole social token concept, right? Social tokens, fan tokens, same thing. You know, you sort of give your community of diehard believers the ability to exert some more engaged way of participating in their fandom. So I don't know, but back to you, Jen.
I think it's just natural progression, right? We had athletes who were participating in sports, fans were going to the stadiums to watch them. Then they were forced to create brands on social media and engage with their fans that way. Now we have NFTs and fan tokens, and it just feels like this extension that we were pushed into over COVID-19. We were heading in that direction anyways. And so I don't know what's going to stick or what's not, but it feels like a natural progression.
We will track it as it happens, and that's the beauty of covering this space day in, day out. So thanks so much. That's the hash for today. Hey, big news. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by Congressman Darren Soto. That's the plan, at least for now. We're going to talk about all the latest in legislative battles on Capitol Hill with Rep. Darren Soto tomorrow on the hash. So stick with us. That should be fun. I'm Zack Seward. We got Naomi Brockwell, Ben Powers, Jen Sanasie, Will Foxley. They're all great. And we will be back again this time tomorrow. Until then, stick with us on CoinDesk TV, 3 p.m., all about Bitcoin. And CoinDesk.com has all the latest news on the cryptocurrency sector. All right. Have a great Thursday. We'll talk to you soon. And that's it. Bye.
Zach, I'm not great. I'll say a man of the people down here.
Oh.
Keep it real.
See ya.